Hey kids, can you believe it? We are really flying through Module 5. There are really just two important points to Module 5, and it's volume in the beginning, and then they spend a little bit of time on area for the second half. So Lesson 10 starts with area, and they're sticking with nice, simple, rectangular figures in Lesson 10 with either whole or fractional side lengths. So it's kind of like, oh, we got to get back to multiplying with fractions and mixed numbers. So that's a little bit of review for today. Just remember, we've been talking about the formula for volume for the whole first half of this module, which is length times width times height. And I've talked many times about the formula for area being length times width. So normally, if I wasn't using this program, I would start by teaching what area is and then kind of build that into volume. But we're doing this backwards because that's what the program says. So we've done volume, and now we're going to kind of pull back and just find the flat area of different rectangles. It's really mostly squares, but as you know, squares have a lot of attributes that you can call rectangular attributes. So anyway, we'll get into that when we do geometry. Now, in Lesson 10, this is essentially what we're doing. Find the area of rectangles which are flat with whole and mixed numbers, okay, by whole and just fractions. And we're going to be tiling and drawing, and then we're going to connect to fraction multiplication. And so there is a little review here with what the terminology is. Factor times factor equals product. And then here's a little practice problem with 3.5 by 2 1/3. And remember how to take your mixed number and wrap it all up into one. For one way, it's just one of the ways you can solve multiplication, and so when the numbers are pretty simple, that's really an easy way to go about it. 2 times 3 is 6, plus 1 is 7, because we're talking about how many halves we have. So it's going to be 2 halves and 2 halves and 2 halves. So we have 3 wholes, which would be the 2 halves plus 2 halves plus 2 halves, and then we have 1 extra, which makes 7 halves. And then the same thing here, but we're using thirds. And so it's going to be 3 times 2 is 6 plus 1 is 7. And so it's 7/3. With multiplication, you just go straight across both the top and the bottom. 7 times 7 is 49. 2 times 3 is 6. Now do division, because every fraction is simply a division problem. 49 divided by 6. And you get 8 and 1/6, because 6 times 8 is 48. And there's 1 left over. Okay, now the rest of this is going to be in your book. So go ahead and get your book out. And I actually created, normally I do kind of a fun activity on the whiteboard, but since nobody's here in class and I figured, well, you know what, I think I'm going to build it on little whiteboards, so that you guys can still see what the tiling looks like. Tiling is going to be building it. And if you have sticky notes, you can build your own. You don't have to have the same size I have. You can call it anything you want, but little sticky notes are excellent for creating these, just constructing these figures. Okay, so sketch the rectangles and your tiling, write the dimensions and the units you counted in the blanks. Then use multiplication, that's going to be our strategy, area equals length times width, to confirm the area. Oh gosh, my pencil's breaking again. Show your work, we will do rectangles A and B together. And so rectangle A is going to be pretty simple. So I constructed it here, and what I'm hoping is that it will fit. And if it doesn't, I'm just going to lift this off for a second so you guys can kind of see what I'm looking at. And there it is. Okay, so figure A is going to be a 2 by 3 figure, and you're going to find the area. Now it's easy peasy, because area is length times width. So draw what you had for this figure, and it's going to be 3 tiles across and 2 tiles down. And so when you have a 3 by 2, and you know that area equals length times width, then we have 3 by 2 and 6. Notice that they are labeling it for you, and notice this little 2 here, 2 dimensions. That's going to be the length and the width, and so that is why you put the little 2. It's flat, okay, flat. And so that's going to be how you label area in square units, because these are just flappy little squares. They're just real simple sticky notes that I stuck onto a little whiteboard, portable whiteboard. So rectangle B, let's do B. Okay, so I'm going to set this down, pick this up, being very careful not to turn off my little camera there. Okay, so rectangle B, or figure B, has 2.5 by 3. Now for this one, I'm going to put this back in here. For this one, I want you to think about what each square or rectangle represents. If this is a 1 by 1, then the total area of this figure is 1. And this is also 1 because it's a 1 by 1, and this is 1. Here we have 1. This is another 1, and this is another 1. Now what happens, we're really interested in what happens down here. If these on the side are 1 whole and 1 whole, but this is only a half, but it's 1/2 by 1 whole, it's a whole distance wide, but it's only a half tall, then basically the area of this figure is 1/2. As is this one. As is this one. So when you look at this whole figure and you think, well, what's the area? You can literally count the 1 wholes, and then when you get to the halves, every time you have 2 halves, you make 1 whole. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and a half. And that's my predicted outcome. Just move the used ones off to the side. And so we're going to draw that, and we're going to predict that it will be 7 and a half. So make your 3 and 3 again. And then we're going to have the little halves. So just about like that. And then label it 3 by 2.5. Now because area is length times width, here you can put the 3 times 2 and get 6. But here we have 3 times 2.5. And for your different methods of multiplication, okay, another of the methods was to do the 3 by 2 and 3 times 1/2. So that was the other method, instead of making this like 5 halves, which you can also do. So let's do this other reminder of how to do it. 3 times 2 is 6, and then we have to add to that the 3 halves. And that's going to be 1.5. And so rectangle B is going to be 3 units long, 2.5 units wide, and then the final area is 7.5 units squared. Okay, so you can have fractional units on the side, on the length, width, and for the final area. Okay, let's do another one. So rectangle C. This one I had to change the size of the sticky notes because we needed to have 5 and I could not fit them. But notice that they are halves on the side. So it's 5 by 1.5 for C. So let's draw this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And these are all one whole, okay? But I also have half, 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 half. You can make that bigger if you don't want to write so tiny. That's totally fine. 5 by 1.5. Okay, so it's 5 units long and 1.5 units wide. And you can set it up with your formula. And then 5 times 1.5. And you can split it out by doing the improper fraction, or you can take it apart. You can do 5 times 1, which you know is 5, but we'll just draw it out. Okay. And then you can have your mixed number. And you end up with your 7.5 units squared. Okay. So formula, tiling, and then recognizing how to put it all together. You can also get used to, I want to understand how this works. So put your ones in here, add up all of your halves, and put your halves together just to kind of confirm what you have gotten with your mathematical calculation. So 6 wholes, and then here's 1 whole, and then here's the extra half. So 6 and 1 is 7 plus the extra half. There you go. There's your area. Okay, that's what the tiling is really nice for. Rectangle D. Here is another one. Now back to the purple tiles. These are a little bit bigger, but it's less than a whole. So it's going to be 2 times 1 3/4. So let's draw that. Okay, it's going to be 2 full rectangles. And then this is all of 1 right here. So you need to have less than 1 for the 3/4. 1 3/4. So this is 1 and 1. And then these are 3/4 and 3/4. Okay, so area, write your formula down. Get used to it. 2 times 1 3/4. If you like to wrap this up, we can do 2 times 4 times 1 is 4, plus 3 is 7. And that can be like a reminder of how to solve these. Multiply straight across. 2 times 7 is 14. 1 times 4 is 4. Now divide this. 4 goes into 14. 3 full times to get 12, and then you have 2 left. You should always simplify, and then when you compare, you're going to come back here and check your drawing, but you can always simplify so that you don't have something that you can reduce here. So 2 units long and 1 3/4 units wide, and the area is 3.5 units squared. That's how many squares. Now, if I want to take this out, okay, think of it as 75 cents and 75 cents. That makes $1.50. So if I had 1 and 1, that's 2, and $1.50, that would be 3.5. So that's what you're getting. If you put it in terms of money, that can always help you with your 3/4 or 75 hundredths, which is an equivalent. Now, rectangle E, say goodbye to figure D. And we have one more using our very beautiful teal colored sticky notes. Now these are only 3/4 by 5. Okay, so this one doesn't even have 1. So each tile is going to be sort of chopped short. Oops, that one is really chopped short. Okay, this is going to be a full 5 this way, but this side is only 3/4. And so write your formula. And here we have our whole number times a fraction. And since it's not a mixed number, you can just straight multiply. And just like we had on the previous one, you can divide by 4, but we're going to get 3 again because 3 times 4 is 12 and 3/4. So put your 5 units long, 3/4 units wide, and 3 3/4 units squared for your final area. Okay, and goodbye, figure E. And turn the page. Okay. Now, for number 6, the rectangle to the right is composed of squares that measure 2 1/4 inches on each side. Now, what they're saying is this guy here is 2 1/4 inches. And this side here is 2 1/4 inches. Okay? So that's what they're saying when they specify each one has not a 1, it has 2 1/4. So that's going to impact, like you can't just put 1 1 1 1 anymore. 1 only works here when it's a 1 inch or a 1 centimeter or a 1 meter by a 1 meter. But these are not. So that changes everything. Okay? What is its area in square inches? So we need to get the whole area of this whole thing. And we're going to explain our thinking kind of as we go using pictures and numbers. So this is, I think I'm going to unhook you guys one final time. Hopefully I won't turn it off. There we go. Now this is basically what we're looking at here. So each of the little tiles is 2 1/4. And so what you can do is you can look at the total amount. So like 2, 4, 6, and then 1, 2, 3. So it could be 6 3/4 for the full width of the left side. And then 2, 4, 6, 8 plus 1/4, 1/4, 1/4, 1/4. That makes 4/4. So that's really nice because you have 2, 4, 6, 8 plus 1 makes 9. So at the bottom here, one of your options is to have 6 3/4 times 9 to find the area of this whole figure. Or you could, if you say wanted to try a different way, you could do 2 1/4 times 2 1/4 to find the area of one tile here and then multiply it by 12. That's another strategy. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, which is 4 times 3 to get 12. So a bunch of different ways to think about it. You probably all have motion sickness now. So sorry about that. It's just, that's life. Sorry I made you all sick. All right, coming on back. So let's take what we know now from the whiteboard and we will put it into our book and explain our thinking. So using pictures and numbers. So we're going to do, I'm going to put a couple of those options. 2 1/4 times 2 1/4 gives the area of 1. Then you can multiply by 12. Okay, because that's how many tiles there are. Or you can do 2 1/4, 2 1/4, label all these, and then go like this. 2, 4, 6, 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, that's 9. And then 2, 4, 6, and 1, 2, 3, 6 3/4. Or 6 3/4 times 9, which is the formula, okay, length times width. So you have options, and let's just do, maybe I should do both of them. There's so much work that we could do, but what are we at, 19 minutes? Okay, let's hurry it up. Best way, kind of makes a mess. Let's do 9 times 6 3/4. 24, nah, let's do it this way. 6 times 9, we'll break it out. And then plus 9 times 3/4. So we want to take each part and then multiply. And we'll put 9 as a whole number over 1. And so we have 54 plus, and this is going to be 27 over 4. And 4 can go into 27. 6 times 4 is 24 with 3 left over. And then add, and you will get 60 3/4. And that's really the quickest. I think the other way I've done it before, and it kind of makes a big mess, but you are certainly welcome to do it. 2 times 2 and 2 times 1/4, and then 1/4 times 2 and 1/4 times 1/4. It kind of takes up a lot of space, so you can just leave it like this. Do whatever is comfortable for you. And you can wrap it up into a mixed, an improper fraction. So find the area of 1 with 9/4 times 9/4, and then multiply by 12. Don't forget to multiply by 12. Okay? So since we already did the full amount here, this is the total area of the figure. And then finally, let's wrap it up with number 7. A rectangle has a perimeter of 35.5 feet. So remember that perimeter is the distance around. We haven't talked about it for a while. And that's just going to be like this way, plus this way, plus this way, plus that way. Okay, so area is multiplying. Volume is 3 dimensions multiplying, and perimeter is just walking around. So the total perimeter is 35.5. If the length is 12 feet, then that would be the length on each side. What is the area of the rectangle? So all the squares in the middle. So what you can do here is to take your 35.5, which we know is the total distance around, but take off this. Okay, now that's going to be a total of 24 feet. I want to know what's left. I have to find out what is the whatever you call it, length or width. I'm going to call it the width. Let's call the length 12 feet. So subtract here. And we're not going to mess around with the half because it's 24 that's coming off of 35, which gives you 11.5 feet left. Now I have to divide that into the 2 pieces. Okay, so if you divide 11.5 into 2, well, gosh, again, you can do it a couple different ways. You could take the whole number and divide it by 2 and get 5.5, and then you can take the fraction and divide it by 2 and get a 1/4, and then put those 2 together. And so 11.5 divided by 2 is going to give you 5 3/4 feet for each side. And then once you have this, we have to find the area. And so you would take your 12 times 5 3/4. And here, I do jump around a little bit with all the different methods, but you can do 12 times 5, and then to that add 12 times 3/4. And that is actually one of the simpler ways because 4 and 12 can be simplified, and I know 12 times 5 is 60. So we get a whole number here, and that will be the feet squared, the rectangle. And I hope this was a fun one. So click subscribe, and I'll see you on the next math video. Bye now.